Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are cracking open a really universal business pain point that I think just hits right in the gut.
It really does.
It's that feeling that your operational structure is actually managing you and not the other way around.
Yeah, the cycle of operational chaos. And it's surprisingly common even in really successful growing companies.
Right.
The sources we analyzed for this, a mix of consulting reports and founder testimonials, they paint such a vivid picture.
What does that picture look like?
You're watching your team waste hours every single week on what they call Sisyphean tasks.
Oh, that's a great term for it, just pushing the rock up the hill.
Exactly. And information is it's everywhere. It's scattered across a dozen different channels,
Yeah.
from some obscure shared drive to random WhatsApp threads.
And everyone is just constantly putting out fires.
Constantly trapped in that mode.
So that is pretty much the definition of high-stress inefficiency. Our mission for this deep dive is, well, it's simple. We want to extract the strategic playbook that moves a company from that chaos to genuine, measurable business clarity.
And we should start with the core, kind of painful insight the sources reveal. The root problem isn't a lack of tools.
Which is what everyone thinks it is. We just need better software.
Right. It's not that you don't own Excel or you don't have a subscription to Monday.com or enough tech licenses. The deep systemic issue is the absence of someone who can reliably and strategically connect all three critical contexts.
The three contexts. Okay, let's unpack those because on the surface they sound obvious, but I have a feeling in practice they get siloed.
They absolutely are. So first, you have the business context. That's the mission, the revenue streams, legal limits, profit goals, all that.
C-suite stuff.
Basically, yeah. Second, you have the experiential context. And this is the actual human journey of the client or even the employee using the service. How do they feel? What friction are they hitting?
Okay, and the third.
The technological context. This is where the code lives, the platforms, the APIs, the automation tools.
Right.
And in almost every scaling business, these three things are handled by three different groups of people: the exec team, the marketing or UX team, and the IT department. And they rarely speak the same language.
That immediately explains the friction, of
Yeah.
course. The executive wants speed for the business.
Mm-hmm.
The customer wants ease. That's the experience. And the engineer just wants clean code for the technology.
Exactly.
And if nobody can translate between those priorities, you end up with a high-cost, high-friction mess.
Precisely. You're building systems that are, technically sound, but they completely fail the customer, or systems that solve one business problem by creating 5 new manual headaches for the team.
So the answer isn't another software subscription.
No, it's a strategic partner.
The sources we looked at call this partner a translator for the technological world. I like that. They really emphasize that they are not there to sell you the latest AI fad.
Not at all.
They're selling order and clarity, which sounds great, but let me, play devil's advocate for our listener. If this person is connecting all these contexts, aren't they just a very expensive, overloaded consultant?
That's an excellent question, and it gets right to the heart of their value. The sources are clear that their position is built on 10 plus years of integrated experience.
Integrated how?
As an entrepreneur, a product manager, and a designer, they're sort of strategically pre-qualified to avoid that freelancer trap.
Okay, so what does that actually look like in practice, that integrated role?
Well, they fill 3 roles seamlessly. They act as the characterizer, the strategist who defines what the system should do,
Okay.
then the designer who maps the human experience, and then the technical expert who dictates how to build it efficiently.
So by combining those, you avoid the broken phone effect.
You completely eliminate it. When you hand specs from a designer to a programmer and then to some other vendor, information is always lost. It gets misinterpreted.
Leading to slow, expensive results.
Exactly. This unified approach is just faster and safer because the intent is never lost in translation.
Let's talk about the emotional side of this, because the sources were really specific that you have to crack that barrier first. They mention technophobia.
It's a huge burden. The stress that comes just from hearing terms like AI or business automation.
And that technophobia keeps businesses trapped.
Totally trapped. They know their manual processes, the messy Excel sheets, the endless copy-pasting. They know it's barely working, but there's a deep fear of touching it.
They're afraid of the cost, the complexity.
And terrified of disrupting the fragile system they already have. So the strategic partner's first job is to recognize that emotional barrier. Their whole approach starts by building trust and getting clarity on the business pain before any technology is even mentioned.
It sounds like they're providing psychological relief as much as a tech solution.
That's a great way to put it. They're basically saying, don't buy technology yet. Let's just talk about the pain.
And that leads us to the first step, which is all about diagnosis.
The clarity workshop.
I really appreciate that the sources make it clear that this partner, quote, does not believe in closing huge projects in one meeting.
Yeah, it's the opposite of the high-pressure sales tactic you see everywhere else in tech. It's about building value and trust right away.
A surgical diagnosis over a blind commitment.
Exactly. And the workshop is super focused. It's structured to disarm that chaos in a really time-bound way. It's the antidote to hiring a consultant who gives you a 100-page report 6 months later that no one ever reads.
So tell us about that process. What happens inside that workshop?
The first step is mapping the existing process end to end. And this is literally putting every single step, every document, every human interaction up on a board to visually, disassemble the chaos.
And I bet most business owners are shocked when they see it all laid out.
They're always shocked. They see the operational sprawl for the first time.
Okay, so after that,
The second step is crucial. Identifying the 3 critical bottlenecks. They aren't looking for every little inefficiency. They are surgically identifying the choke points that cause like 80% of the damage and frustration.
the places where money and time are just hemorrhaging.
That's it. This prioritization is key. Instead of trying to fix 100 small things, they focus on the 3 that will give you maximum leverage.
Right. And the third step.
Building the compass. The strategic document, it's not some long academic report. It's a clear, prioritized action plan. It defines what you have to do now, what can wait till next quarter, and, this is really important, what the business should absolutely not invest in at all.
That document alone sounds incredibly valuable. So what's the measurable takeaway for a business owner after this?
They walk away with 2 huge assets. First is absolute clarity about the problem and its simplest, most direct solution. That immediately breaks down the fear of technology.
And the second,
They regain control over their business narrative. They stop feeling trapped. Clients in the source material frequently said that this strategic document alone was worth the entire investment.
peace of mind and a roadmap.
That's step 1.
Okay, so it sounds great in theory, but we need the proof. We need to see how this diagnosis translates into actual measurable impact. Let's jump into the case studies. Tell me about the engineering firm.
This is a perfect example of intellectual capital just being choked by manual labor.
Okay.
Picture these engineers, brilliant people, highly complex projects, but their daily lives were spent drowning in Excel sheets. They were doing these complex calculations for regulatory compliance.
Which are always changing.
Constantly changing. So they were spending between 1 and 2 days just to generate a single compliance report.
A day or two.
Mhm.
And with that much complexity, manual errors must be, well, inevitable.
And potentially catastrophic. Errors meant costly rework, project delays. It just stalled their growth. Their ability to take on new projects was capped by this bottleneck.
And the knee-jerk solution is always to buy some huge, expensive enterprise system.
Of course. But the partner didn't start there. They started with surgical characterization, mapping the engineer's workflow minute by minute. And they found the engineers were spending 90% of their time just copying data, checking tabs, and formatting the final report.
Not engineering.
Not engineering. So the solution wasn't a massive new system. It was a single, focused machine. They built a tool that automatically pulled the latest regulatory data from official sources, performed all the complex calculations instantly, and then generated a perfect, formatted PDF report.
Hold on. You said it previously took 1 to 2 days to generate that report. What was the result after this?
This process time was reduced from a minimum of 1 day to 10 minutes.
10 minutes. That's staggering.
It is. But the most staggering result was actually the behavioral change. Human errors vanished, and the engineers stopped being data entry clerks. They were elevated back to their true high-value role, quality controllers, reviewing the final output for strategic insight, not for typos.
Wow. That's a profound shift. Okay, let's look at the next case, the digital services one. This seems less about internal calculations and more about the customer journey.
Yeah, this firm was just hemorrhaging customers. They were spending a ton of money to acquire them, but right after registration, these new users were just abandoning the service in droves.
Why?
Their onboarding was cold, it was generic, confusing. They were spending, say, $100 to get a client, only to lose them on day 1.
This is where that experiential context must be so vital. It's not about the code, it's about the feeling.
Absolutely. The first step was mapping the customer journey, not just logistically, but emotionally. Identifying the emotional pain points.
Like what?
Like a new user gets 5 automated emails at once that don't relate to what they just signed up for, or the instructions are way too technical. The company was basically making the customer feel unwelcome and confused right at the start.
So the solution wasn't more outreach, it was more precision, more empathy.
Exactly. They used technology in the background, but only to serve a personalized human journey. They focused on delivering the right info at the precise emotional stage for the customer. They were connecting the person's intent with their next action, making them feel understood.
And the outcome.
The results were immediate, just dramatic. Customer abandonment dropped by 30%. Onboarding engagement rose by 40%.
And the business impact.
Staggering. A 90% rise in revenue from those engaged clients. And because they were keeping so many more customers, their acquisition cost effectively dropped by 50%.
It just proves that tech solutions are only valuable when they're rooted in solving that human emotional friction.
That's the whole point.
So that brings us to the sweet nightmare, as the sources call it, when rapid success causes your whole structure to collapse.
This third case study is a classic structural failure. A startup with overwhelming demand, but their infrastructure was just brittle.
What were the symptoms?
Nervous, overwhelmed recruiters, high rates of candidates ghosting them because the systems couldn't track engagement properly. Clients were being lost because of missed communications.
They were succeeding at sales but failing at operations.
Exactly. Every single day was just panic mode, trying to keep up.
Now, the founder's instinct in that situation is usually hire more people or build more features.
And that would have just added more chaos to a broken structure. The clarity process showed they didn't need another programmer or more features. They needed strategic architecture, order.
So what did Bartner do?
They stabilized the foundation. They integrated automation and AI not to replace the staff, but to fundamentally empower them. Automating the low-touch tasks freed the team up for the crucial high-touch interactions that actually grow the business.
Shifting from panic-driven growth to systematic scaling, what was the impact of that stability?
The system stabilized immediately. Client abandonment dropped by 25%. And because the infrastructure could finally handle the volume, their customer base tripled in size shortly after. And here's the big financial takeaway. This new, stable, scalable infrastructure directly supported a successful $2 million funding round.
Because stability de-risks the investment. It's profoundly attractive to investors.
It proves the growth narrative is real and sustainable.
The testimonials really reinforce that stability is the core product. I noted one client saying the partner's ability to make processes idiot-proof was invaluable.
Designing for resilience. It implies building systems that are resilient to human error.
Right. Another one noted the partner cut almost 80% of unnecessary steps from their customer journey. That's efficiency that hits the bottom line immediately.
And it speaks to the partner's ability to extract the very essence of a product in a way that the founders, who were just too close to it, couldn't define themselves.
Which is the strategic value, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about building something. It's holding up a mirror to the business to help them understand their own core purpose better than they could on their own.
Precisely. It's an impartial, experienced eye. And it's worth noting, this partner is actively building working systems, not just writing documents. The sources confirm they're a strategic partner with major platforms like Wix, which speaks to their ability to actually execute.
So to synthesize everything we've covered today, the primary insight for you, the listener, is this. True operational efficiency and long-term stress-free scaling.
Yeah.
It starts with surgical diagnosis and strategic context, never with just buying more technology.
You have to understand the human and the business journey first.
Yes.
That's absolutely right. When you go through this type of deep dive clarity process, what you're actually buying is peace of mind and control. You stop fearing technology and you start managing it effectively. You move your focus from the Sisyphean task of firefighting to strategic, predictable growth.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to chew on. If your current solution requires constant firefighting and is managed through scattered documents and endless meetings, what core aspect of your customer's emotional journey are you currently neglecting? And how is that unresolved human pain point costing you more in churn and lost productivity than any new piece of technology ever could?